The air inside the alien auction room smelled like fear and oil. Bright red lights glowed from the ceiling, casting shadows across the faces of strange creatures. Some had horns, others had skin like metal, and a few looked almost human. Until they smiled. Captain Raylan stood near the back wall, arms crossed, eyes sharp. He didn't come to buy anyone. He hated this place. He had fought in wars to free planets, not to see people in chains. But he was here for a reason. Someone had told him about a girl, a rare one. The announcer, a fat creature with 6 arms, spoke in broken galactic common. Next up, Lot Nar 73, a real treasure, silver-skinned, from the Zheyla species, very rare, very obedient. A cage rolled into the center of the room. Inside sat a girl with silver skin, long white hair falling around her face. She wore a simple, gray robe. Her hands were cuffed, her ankles chained. But what struck Raylan most was her eyes. She didn't look broken. She looked calm. Sad, maybe, but not scared. She looked at the crowd, and her gaze stopped on Raylan. For a moment, everything went silent. Raylan felt something strange, like a whisper in his mind. "Help me." He blinked. Had she spoken? No, her lips hadn't moved. The announcer laughed loudly. "Telepathic, yes, a bonus. She can sense feelings, maybe even read minds." Bidders started shouting numbers. An insectoid creature offered 300 credits. A worm-like being raised it to 500. Another alien in gold armor offered 1,000. Raylan didn't plan this. He didn't want to be part of it. But her eyes. 2,000, he said suddenly. Everyone went silent. All eyes turned to him. The announcer raised his eyebrows. "Big price human, you buy her for real?" Raylan nodded once. "Yeah, that's my bid." Sold. The cage opened, and 2 guards pushed the girl toward him. Her chains clanked with every step. She kept her head down until she stood in front of Raylan. Then slowly she looked up. She was beautiful, but not in a romantic way. More like a living piece of starlight, trapped in the wrong world. Raylan reached forward and removed the cuffs from her wrists. She didn't flinch. She simply held her arms out, waiting. "I'm not your owner," he said. "You're free now." She blinked. And then, to his shock, she smiled. "Thank you," she said softly. Her voice was like wind on metal, gentle but strange. "What's your name?" Raylan asked. "Zheyla." He nodded. "Come on, Zheyla. Let's get out of here." They walked out of the auction house, the girl quietly keeping pace beside him. No words, no crying, just calm silence. Back on his ship, Raylan sat across from Zheyla at the small table. She didn't touch the food he gave her. Instead, she stared out the window at the stars. "You can eat," he said. "It's not poisoned." She looked at him with those glowing eyes. "I don't need much food, just light and quiet." Then, "Why were you smiling?" he asked. "When I bought you." She turned her head slowly. "Because I thought I would die in chains, but you looked at me like I was alive." Raylan rubbed his neck. "I didn't plan to buy anyone, I know," she said. "You felt my call. In your mind. You did that?" She nodded. It was weak, a whisper. I had no hope it would work. Raylan leaned back, stunned. "Telepathy? Yes. It's natural for my kind, but it takes energy. I haven't used it in a long time." "Why not?" She looked away. "Because every time I reached out, I found pain." A silence fell between them. Raylan finally stood up. "You can stay here until we figure out what's next. You're not a prisoner." Zheyla smiled again. This time, it was fuller, warmer. "No," she said. As he walked toward the pilot's chair, he didn't see her eyes glowing faintly behind him. Not with danger, but with something even rarer. Hope. Zheyla never screamed. never cried, never asked questions, even after leaving the auction, even after being given a soft bed, real food, and freedom. She remained mostly silent, not just with her mouth, but with her whole presence. She moved like a shadow, quiet and careful, like she expected someone to punish her for breathing too loud. Raylan noticed it the second day aboard his ship, the Star Raven. He walked past her room early in the morning and paused. The door was slightly open. Inside, Zheyla sat on the floor instead of the bed. Legs folded, eyes closed, her silver skin glowing softly under the ship's lights. She looked like a statue, still and calm. He watched her for a moment. She didn't move, didn't notice him, or maybe she just didn't care. Later in the dining area, Raylan placed a steaming bowl of soup in front of her. She bowed her head politely, but didn't eat. "I replicated it fresh," he said, trying to sound casual. "Human-style vegetable broth, no meat. I remember you said your kind doesn't eat much." She nodded once. "Thank you, Captain." He sighed. "You can call me Raylan, not Captain. I'm not your boss." Her glowing eyes met his. "It is the respectful term." Raylan leaned forward. "I didn't save you to own you, Zheyla. You understand that, right?" She stared for a long moment, then quietly said, "Yes. But kindness still feels like a chain when you've lived your whole life in a cage." He had no answer to that night. Something strange happened. Raylan woke up suddenly, sweat on his brow, heart racing. He had dreamed of fire, of screaming, of Zheyla reaching out to him, eyes filled with fear and smoke all around her. He sat up, breathing hard, and looked toward the hallway. Her door was open again. Quietly, he walked over. Zheyla sat in the same position on the floor. But this time, her hands were clenched, her eyes shut tight, her shoulders trembled. Without thinking, Raylan knelt beside her. "Zheyla," he whispered. "You okay?" Her voice echoed in his mind, not spoken, but felt. "They're watching." "Who?" he asked out loud. She opened her eyes. "My people." Raylan frowned. "I thought they sold you off. Why would they still watch you?" She looked at him with heavy sadness. "Because I still carry something they fear." Raylan stared at her. "What do you mean?" Instead of answering, she slowly stood and walked to the ship's control console. She touched the screen gently. Her silver fingers glowed, and suddenly a strange code appeared across the display. Symbols Raylan couldn't read. "What is that?" he asked. Zheyla looked back. "A warning." The next morning, the ship's long-range scanner picked up movement. Raylan frowned at the screen. "That's not local traffic. Someone's tracking us." Zheyla stood silently behind him. "They're here." "Who?" she whispered. "The Zilari High Trackers." Raylan narrowed his eyes. "You told me your people sold you off. Why would they come after you now?" She walked to the window and stared into the stars. "Because I didn't tell you everything. I wasn't just any Zilari, I was one of their bonded. They're chosen." Raylan blinked. "You mean royalty?" "No," she said. "Worse. I was a weapon they designed to feel love, and then kill if it was taken away." He stared at her. "You were built to love?" "To love deeply," she whispered. "And when that love is broken, we become something else. That's why they fear me." Raylan stepped back, unsure whether to feel pity or fear. "Should I be worried?" he asked carefully. She turned to him and smiled, but it wasn't the same as before. It was sad. Honest. "No. You haven't hurt me." He exhaled slowly. "But others have," she added, voice lower. That night he stayed up watching the stars, fingers near the ship's weapon controls. He didn't trust the trackers. But more than that, he didn't understand how someone like Zheyla could still smile after all she had been through. The girl who sat in chains, who slept on floors, who didn't speak unless spoken to, had something inside her that he couldn't name. It wasn't rage. It wasn't fear. It was strength. In silence, Raylan knew the next days would bring danger. But for now, he looked at Zheyla's sleeping face through the monitor and thought one thing. She's not just surviving, she's waiting. Raylan's ship, the Star Raven, flew through open space like a ghost, silent, fast, and hunted. Zheyla sat strapped beside him in the co-pilot seat, her silver fingers lightly brushing the edge of the control panel. Her glow had dimmed. She hadn't eaten in a day. Her body didn't need much food, but Raylan could tell. Something else was draining her. "They're close," she said softly. Raylan checked the radar. "I don't see anyone." "They mask their signal," she replied. "Zheyla trackers. Use folded shadows. You won't see them until they're already inside." Raylan clenched his jaw. "Great, I love surprise guests." Zheyla closed her eyes. Her voice entered his head like a cold breeze. "We need to jump now, before they breach the hull." Before he could ask what she meant, the ship shuddered. "Impact?" Raylan shouted. "No." "Boarding," Zheyla answered, already moving. In the narrow hallway behind the cockpit, two armored beings phased through the wall, Zheyla high trackers. Their bodies looked like polished glass, their eyes burning blue. They held curved weapons that pulsed with light. Raylan raised his blaster. "You've got the wrong ship." One of the trackers tilted its head. "Return the subject or be erased." Zheyla stepped forward. Her voice didn't waver. "I am not your subject anymore," the tracker hissed in its native tongue. "Defect. Corrupt. Dangerous." Zheyla didn't reply with words. She lifted her hands, and everything in the hallway froze. Literally, the walls iced over. The air turned white. The trackers stopped moving, frozen mid-step like statues. Raylan's breath turned to vapor. Zheyla's eyes glowed brighter than ever. Then, with one word in his mind, she said, "Run." Raylan didn't ask questions. He grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the emergency corridor. The ship's system was failing, flickering lights, overheating engines, alerts blaring. They reached the small jump pod just as the ship's AI announced, "Warning, intruders detected, life support failing, jump core critical." Raylan shoved Zheyla inside and sealed the hatch. "Where will this pod take us?" "Anywhere," she said, weak now. "It's untraceable." Raylan hit launch. The pod shot out into the black, leaving the Star Raven behind, fading like a dying star. Through the small window, Raylan watched his ship disappear. Zheyla leaned her head back and closed her eyes. "You used too much power," Raylan said. She didn't open her eyes. "I had to. If they took me, you'd be dead. You should have let me fight them." "You would have lost." Raylan stayed quiet. She wasn't wrong. Hours later, the pod drifted through asteroid fields and empty silence until it latched onto an abandoned docking bay, a station no longer on any maps. Raylan helped Zheyla out of the pod. She walked slowly now, her glow flickering, like a dying lantern. "This place looks haunted," he muttered. "It is," she said. He raised an eyebrow. "Seriously?" "This is an old Zheyla relay base," she explained. "They used it during the border wars. Then, they erased it, but not completely." Raylan scanned the empty halls. Dust floated in the stale air. Machines long dead sat along the walls like bones. "So what now?" "We hide. Just for now. My powers need rest. Your mind needs answers." He looked at her. "What answers?" She turned to face him fully. "You saved me. But you still don't know what you saved." In the control room, Zheyla placed her hand on a console. It lit up slowly. The room shimmered to life. Holograms of stars and coded data began spinning in the air. Raylan looked around in shock. "You activated all this with just your hand?" "I carry the imprint," she said. "Zheyla tech obeys my bloodline." Raylan stepped closer. "So, You were someone important. Zheyla didn't look at him. I was trained to feel deeply, love deeply, bond with any target. Then, to destroy that target when commanded. Raylan's throat went dry. I was meant to be the perfect spy, she continued. But I rebelled. I chose to bond with someone and refused the order to kill him. What happened to him? Zheyla closed her eyes. They killed him and punished me for loving him. Raylan swallowed hard. That's why they fear you? Yes. Because I no longer follow orders, I follow my heart. He looked at her, unsure what to say. Silence filled the room. Then Zheyla whispered, I used my last strength to save you today, but more are coming. Raylan stepped closer. We'll fight them. Together. She looked at him, finally smiling. A tired, real smile. You say that, now. But wait until you see what I really am. The power flickered in the old Zheyla station. Echoes of the past filled the air. Broken whispers from dead machines. Faded lights dancing like ghosts on metal walls. Raylan sat near a rusted control panel fixing a cracked energy cell. Across the room, Zheyla sat with her legs crossed, floating an old data crystal in the air using only her mind. The glow from the crystal reflected in her silver eyes. For the first time since he'd bought her, she seemed at peace. And yet, Raylan had questions, not about the trackers or the station, about her. Zheyla, he said quietly. She looked up. I need to ask something. She tilted her head. When you said you were designed to bond with someone, what does that mean? Was it just fake emotion or real? Zheyla didn't answer at first. She let the crystal fall gently into her lap. My creators believed love was the strongest weapon, she began. So they forced it into us, trained us to feel it, deeply, but only for their targets. She looked away. But what they never understood was, once you feel something real, you can't turn it off like a switch. Raylan nodded slowly. So when you bonded with that first man, it was real. Yes, she said softly. And they punished me for it. Burned it out of me. Or tried to. Raylan leaned forward. And now? Zheyla looked him in the eye. Now I'm afraid. Because it's happening again. His chest tightened. Wait. Are you saying, with me? She nodded, slowly. You didn't treat me like property. You didn't expect me to serve or obey. You smiled. You gave me a room. You gave me silence. Raylan blinked, stunned. I didn't mean to. You didn't have to, she whispered. That's why it matters. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was heavy, like something sacred had just been said. Then Zheyla stood and walked to the cracked window, looking out at the stars. Do you know what it means to form a life bond? She asked. Raylan shook his head. In Zheyla tradition, she said, a life bond is when two minds open, fully to each other. No secrets, no lies. Every thought, every fear, every pain shared. Raylan frowned. Sounds terrifying. It is, she replied. But also beautiful. It means you're never truly alone again. He took a breath. Have you bonded with me already? Zheyla turned, her voice softer than ever. No, I can't do it without your permission. Raylan stood up and walked to her. Then why tell me all this? Because they're coming again, she said, voice shaking now. And if they catch me, they'll erase me. My memories, my voice, my mind, everything I am. She paused. But if I bond with you, I can hide a part of myself inside you. Even if I die, you'll carry me. Raylan stared at her, stunned. That's what this is? He whispered. Not just emotion. It's survival. Zheyla looked down. No, Raylan. It's both. Outside the station, space trembled. A ripple moved through the stars. Silent and massive. Inside, alarms lit up on the old monitors. Raylan rushed to check the screen. A large vessel had appeared out of folded space. It didn't broadcast any ID code, it just hovered, blocking all exit routes. Zheyla's face paled. The collector. Raylan's hands froze over the controls. Who? He's the one who broke the Zellari code. The one who sold me to the highest bidder. He doesn't want me dead, he wants me empty. Why? Because I carry something that can destroy him. Raylan turned. What do you mean? Zheyla placed a glowing hand on his chest. My memories. My truth. My identity. Bond with me, Raylan. Not to save me, but to save everything I was. He looked into her eyes. There was no trick, no game. Just a girl who had suffered too long and finally found someone she didn't want to lose. Raylan nodded slowly. What do I have to do? Just say yes and mean it. He took a deep breath. Yes. The moment he spoke, Zheyla stepped closer. Her hands touched his face. Her eyes began to glow, and his vision filled with stars. Images rushed through him, her childhood, her pain, her joy, her loneliness, her first love, her betrayal. All of it. His heart ached. He cried. He laughed. He felt her. And then, it was done. Zheyla staggered back, tears running down her cheeks. You accepted all of it, she whispered. Raylan wiped his face. Yeah. And I'm still here. Then the station shook violently. Zheyla looked out the window. He's boarding. Raylan grabbed his weapon. Let's show him what bonded hearts can do. The station walls trembled like a heartbeat, skipping. In fear. Raylan stood near the entrance bay, weapon charged, heart pounding harder than ever. Behind him, Zheyla knelt on the floor, her fingers glowing softly as she carved protective symbols into the metal surface. Ancient Zellari energy runes meant to shield minds. They won't stop, she said. The collector doesn't take prisoners. He takes pieces. Raylan looked back at her. I don't care what he is. If he wants you, he'll have to step over me. Zheyla smiled gently. He will try to. The door hissed. The lights above flickered into red emergency mode. Something massive stood on the other side. Then the voice came, deep, layered, mechanical, but somehow still alive. Zheyla, you have something that belongs to me. Raylan stepped forward. She doesn't belong to anyone. The door groaned open, and there he was. The collector. His body was half living, half machine, an armored giant with a curved head, burning red eyes and cables like tendrils crawling across the floor. His voice echoed not just in their ears but inside their minds. I created her bond protocols, he said calmly. She is my property. No, Zheyla whispered, standing. You created a weapon, but I became a person. The collector tilted his head. That mistake will be corrected. Suddenly, the room exploded in movement. The collector raised a hand. Energy surged through the floor like lightning. Raylan fired his plasma rifle, but the shot bounced off a shield. Zheyla raised her arms, her energy reacting with the station's core. The runes she had drawn lit up, forming a circle of light around them. Raylan gasped as the glow wrapped around his chest, warm, bright, and alive. What is this? He shouted. Our bond, she said. I gave you part of myself. Now I call it back. Zheyla's eyes blazed. She stepped into the air, her feet no longer touching the ground. She hovered, surrounded by light, hair floating like it was underwater. I am not your creation, she said to the collector. I am your undoing. The collector didn't flinch. He extended his clawed hand, and 5 drones burst into the room. Raylan jumped in front of Zheyla, shooting 2 down. The others flew toward her. Zheyla's voice entered his head again, sharp and focused. Trust me. Suddenly, Raylan felt her emotions flow through him. Memories of pain, strength, freedom, and then power. His hands lit up. He stared in shock as blue light wrapped around his arms. He fired again, but not with a gun. This time the energy came from him. Zheyla had shared her abilities with him, just enough to protect himself. "You gave me a weapon?" he asked, panting. "No," she replied softly. "I gave you me." The collector's voice rose in rage. "You linked with him? A human? Filth!" Zheyla's eyes narrowed. "Yes, because he saw me when you only saw control." She lifted her arms and the room bent around her. Light cracked the air. The walls of the station shifted, responding to her will. Old systems rebooted. Machines obeyed her presence like a queen returning to her castle. Raylan, standing inside the protective circle, watched in awe as she created a field of light, repelling the collector's weapons, pushing him back step by step. He growled, "You will regret this." Zheyla's voice rang out like a bell. "I already did. But now, I choose myself." The collector fired a final blast. A stream of black energy aimed straight at Raylan. Zheyla moved without thinking. She flew in front of him, taking the hit. Her body absorbed the dark energy, twisting in pain. "Zheyla!" Raylan screamed, running, to catch her as she fell. The collector stumbled back, weakened from the power transfer, and retreated into the shadows of the ship's docking bay. "You haven't won," he hissed. "You've only delayed." And then, he vanished. Raylan held Zheyla in his arms. Her silver skin flickered, the glow almost gone. "No, no, no, stay with me." Her voice echoed in his mind, quiet now like the end of a song. "I'm still here, just tired." He looked down at her as she tried to smile. "You protected me," she whispered. "I didn't think anyone ever would." Raylan blinked back tears. "You gave me part of yourself, now I'm giving it back." He pressed his forehead against hers. Their bond shimmered again. Her glow returned, soft, but alive. Zheyla opened, her eyes fully. "You were the right choice." Deep inside the forgotten Zheyla station, behind rusted doors and locked vaults, lay a hidden chamber. The entrance had no name, no markings, just silence, as if the room itself had waited centuries for someone to return. Zheyla stood before the door, her hand trembling slightly. The glow in her fingertips returned after the bond with Raylan, but she was still weak, still healing. Raylan placed a hand on her shoulder. "Are you sure about this?" She nodded. "This is where they stored it. My truth. My memories. Everything. They erased." Raylan stepped aside as she touched the panel. The metal door responded instantly, folding open like paper under fire. Inside, the room was dark, cold. Dust floated like ghosts in zero gravity. In the center floated a single object, a crystal sphere, smooth and glowing faint blue. The memory core. Zheyla stepped forward. Raylan watched as she floated the core into her hands. The room lit up instantly with thousands of flickering lights. Images, sounds, and voices filled the air. "Is that all your memories?" he whispered. "No," she replied. "These are memories of millions, not just mine. Every bonded Zheyla, every victim, every secret the High Council buried." The lights surrounded Raylan. He saw flashes of children taken from homes, of training centers where love was twisted into control, of entire species manipulated by fake emotional bonds. He staggered back. "They built your people to love, only to destroy with it." Zheyla nodded, her voice quiet. "Yes, they turned love into a weapon." She paused, tears welling in her eyes. "But not all of us became what they wanted." Suddenly a vision filled the room, Zheyla as a child laughing under a twin-sunned sky. A boy stood beside her, human, holding her hand. That was him, the one she had truly bonded with before. Raylan watched as the memory shifted. The boy was taken. Zheyla screamed. The collector appeared, shoving a needle into her neck. Her body shook, and her light died in the vision. Raylan turned to her. "They killed everything that made you you." She looked at him. Not everything. I still remembered the feeling. I just didn't know what it was until I met you. His chest tightened. She floated the core toward him. Now, I need you to do something. What? Help me release this, to the galaxy. Let everyone see what the Zheyla Empire did. Raylan hesitated. Won't that make us targets again? Yes, she said, but it will also make us truth-tellers, rebels, hope. Raylan stared at the core. He wasn't a hero. He never asked for this. He just wanted to save a girl at an auction. But now he was part of something bigger. He nodded. Let's do it. The upload began. The core connected with old relay towers still hidden inside the station's walls. Data streamed out like light beams through space, jumping across abandoned satellites and pirate frequencies. Zheyla collapsed, the effort draining her. Raylan caught her. You okay? She smiled weakly. I'm always okay when I'm with you. The core flickered, then stopped. Upload complete. Across the galaxy, the truth spread like wildfire. Screens on ships, stations, and planets lit up. People watched the horrors, the lies, the stolen children, the broken bonds, the engineered emotions, and in the center of it all, they saw her, Zheyla, not as a weapon, but as a voice, a survivor, a rebel, a person. Raylan carried her back to their quarters, laying her down gently. You did it, he whispered. No, she replied. We did. Then she placed her hand over his heart. The bond is stronger now, she said. I can feel everything you feel. Raylan chuckled. That's dangerous. She smiled. No, that's home. Outside, the collector's ship hovered in deep space. The stars outside the old Zheyla station had never looked so clear. Raylan stood on the observation deck, watching the galaxy shift. For once, he didn't feel like a wanderer or a soldier without a war. He felt grounded, because now he wasn't alone. Zheyla walked quietly beside him, her silver skin brighter than ever, her long white hair flowing behind her like silk in zero gravity. They've seen it, she said softly. All of it. My people, your people, the lies, the pain, the truth. Raylan turned to her. And they saw you, not as a weapon, not as property, as a voice that couldn't be silenced. Zheyla smiled. It wasn't forced. It was real. Warm. I was afraid of the bond, she said. I thought it would chain me again. He raised an eyebrow. And now? She looked at him, deeply, fearlessly. Now I understand. You didn't take anything from me. You gave me a place to belong. Across the galaxy, rebellion stirred. The memory core had awakened more than just minds. It had awakened hearts. Other Zheyla defectors began to speak. Victims of the Collector's empire demanded justice. Pirate groups, old allies, even rival species began forming whispers of a united front. Zheyla's name became a symbol, the one who broke the code. But to Raylan, she was still just the girl who smiled in chains and thanked him for seeing her. One quiet evening, she asked a question, simple but filled with meaning. Raylan, what am I to you? He paused, not because he didn't know, but because the answer was too big for just one word. You're not my prisoner, he began. Not my responsibility, not just someone I rescued. You're my mirror, my partner, my light when everything else went dark. She stepped closer. You're not just my bond, he added, voice lower now. You're my choice. Tears touched the edges of her glowing eyes. Then I choose you too. Not because the bond demands it, but because I do. In the days that followed, they transformed the abandoned station into something new. A beacon, broadcasting hope instead of control. Refugees found their way there. Escaped bonded, runaways, even former enemies. Zheyla stood as their guide, not their ruler. And Raylan? He stood at her side. not as a protector, but as hers. One day, a young alien girl stepped forward and asked Zheyla, "Are you the slave from the video?" Zheyla knelt, eyes gentle. "I was, but now I'm free." The girl asked, "How did you become free?" She looked back at Raylan and answered, "Someone looked at me and didn't see a tool. He saw a person, and then he stayed. That's how I knew I was free." Later that night, under the stars, Raylan sat beside her. "Do you ever wish it had gone differently?" he asked. Zheyla shook her head. "No, I would go through it all again because in the end, I found you." He looked into her glowing eyes, hand gently taking hers. "You were supposed to be a companion," he said, "but you became my compass, my voice, my reason. And you," she whispered, "were supposed to save me once, but you saved me every day since." They sat in silence after that, but it was the kind of silence that says everything. Far away, the collector remained hidden, broken and forgotten by the new galaxy that rose from the truth Zheyla had shared. He had tried to erase her, but she had written herself into history. And somewhere in a dark corner of the galaxy, a new Zilari child watched a replay of Zheyla's message, eyes wide with wonder. A voice whispered from the screen, "We were not made to destroy, we were made to feel, and feeling is not weakness, it's power." She was bought as a companion, but she became a leader, a legend, and in one man's heart something even greater. She became home. He watched the data spread, face blank, fists clenched. His empire was burning, and the girl he tried to erase had just become its spark.